War II is simply the most destructive, terrible war in all of human history. And it will dramatically transform America and the world. Now, this is an American history course, so we're going to focus on World War II from an American perspective. And in America, it will change the role of government, women, industry, and America's role in the world itself. We will abandon isolationism for good at this point, and from here on out, from December 7, 1941 to the present, America will become the major player in foreign affairs around the world. Pearl Harbor had united the country behind the war. Most Americans did not want to get directly involved in the war on December 6, 1941, let's say. But of course, after Pearl Harbor, virtually every American believed America had to get involved. And after Pearl Harbor, millions of American boys, or thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, will run out and try to sign up for the war. Both my grandfathers did. America's primary function in the war will turn out to be containing the Japanese. 10 hours after Pearl Harbor, Japan attacks the Philippines using their superiority of air power. Guam falls on December 10th, 3 days later. Wake Island and Hong Kong are also attacked. Singapore, which is controlled by the British, will be taken in February of 1942. The Dutch East Indies and Burma will fall next. So within a span of just a couple of months, Japan has dramatically expanded their control in the Pacific. The Philippines will be attacked by land on May 6th of 1942. The American soldiers there, those that are left behind, those that don't escape, are submitted to something called the Bataan Death March, where they are marched across the island, and the vast majority of them die. The American commander in the Philippines, General Douglas MacArthur, will promise that he'll be back.
I said to the people of the Philippines whence I came, I shall return. Tonight, I repeat those words. I shall return. Nothing is more certain.
Despite MacArthur's confidence, things look really bad for America at this time. America, of course, plans retaliation, and MacArthur will begin a process of moving up from Australia to New Guinea and towards the Philippines on his way to take the Philippines back. We call this island hopping. Chester Nimitz will lead a second fleet that heads out of Hawaii, heading due west, and the plan is for the two to meet in Japan. If you look back here on this map, Nimitz is coming from Hawaii over here on the west, and MacArthur's going to be coming from the south, and they plan to meet up in Hawaii. The Battle of the Coral Sea, which is fought on June 7th of 1942, the day after the Philippines is taken, off the coast of Australia, is a draw. But in many ways, it's a vital battle in the process of World War II. For one thing, it was assumed that the Japanese Navy had complete superiority over the American Navy after the disaster at Pearl Harbor. But what the Coral Sea will show is that aircraft carriers are the key piece of technology in this ocean war. The battle will basically be the two sides aircraft carriers sending planes out to try to find the other fleet and attack it. And because remember, America's aircraft carriers were not at Pearl Harbor, America has its full complement of that particular type of ship. And so the Battle of Coral Sea, while neither side wins, they fight to a draw, is crucial because it teaches both sides really that this is no longer about who has the biggest battleships with the most powerful guns. It's about the airplanes. That's going to be the dominant thing. A month later, from June 3rd to June 6th, the Japanese and the Americans will meet in the Battle of Midway. Now, the Japanese were trying to set up a trap. They were trying to lure the American fleet into Midway, where they were going to ambush it. Midway is a little bitty island west of the Hawaiian Islands. But a group of Americans had broken the Japanese military code, and they knew that it was a trap. And so they are going to try to turn the Japanese trap into a trap. They're going to try to ambush the ambush. And essentially what happens is both fleets sit in the waters off of Midway, And they send their airplanes out every day looking for the other fleet. And it's simply a game of who finds the other fleet first, kind of like the classic game Battleship. And in a lot of ways, America just gets lucky, and our airplanes find their carriers before their airplanes find our carriers. The Japanese will lose 4 carriers at Midway. The carriers are large, expensive ships. One of them is an enormous amount of resources. America loses 0 carriers. And this is the turning point in the war in the Pacific. And in a lot of ways, we just got lucky. But getting lucky at Midway will turn the Pacific from a situation where the Japanese are the dominant military force in the area to where the Americans are. This is one of the major battles of the war.
The Battle of Midway was where everything changed. We broke their codes and their plans were clear. Most of our fleet was waiting for the Japs to show up, ready to get revenge for what they did to us at Pearl Harbor. We had 3 carriers there, the Enterprise, the Hornet, and the Yorktown. To back them up, we had 8 cruisers and 17 destroyers. But the Jap fleet was awesome. They sent 6 carriers, 7 battleships, 14 cruisers, and 42 destroyers. Against their fleet, ours looked insignificant. The battle lasted 3 days, and when the smoke cleared, we saw the damage we'd done. We took out 4 of their carriers, the Akagi, the Kaga, the Hiryu, and the Soryu, and the heavy cruiser Mikuma. All up, we only lost 1 carrier, the Yorktown, and a single destroyer. But it wasn't just ships that the Japs lost at Midway. We also splashed twice as many of their planes as they got of ours. A lot of good Japanese pilots were shot down at Midway, and I don't think their Air Corps ever recovered. In just 3 days, we'd broken the back of their fleet. Their carrier strike force, the Kiru Batai, was all but wiped out. Even with their fleet wrecked, the Japs still had control of most of the Pacific. And thousands of miles south of Midway, the Japanese took control of Guadalcanal.
Guadalcanal, which is in the Solomon Islands, will mark the first American ground offensive in the Pacific theater. But Guadalcanal will dampen the enthusiasm after Midway, as we begin to understand how brutal and difficult and terrible it is to try to root the Japanese off of these islands. It will take 6 months for American Marines to dislodge the Japanese from this one island. And of course, the Pacific is now full of islands occupied by the Japanese army. But Guadalcanal and Midway combine to end Japanese offensive capabilities to the south. It will also lead America to begin an island-hopping campaign, where we just take one island and then the next island and the next island like stepping stones on the way back to Japan. And of course, for MacArthur, on the way back to freeing the people of the Philippines, who he had promised he would return to.